Your life journey doesn't stand still, and neither should your wealth. Welcome to Wealth on the Move, the podcast. All right, welcome back to Wealth on the Move, the podcast. Today we have a pretty special guest, somebody I'm excited to hear a lot from and talk about. He's attacking a part of this profession that I know is a void. With my wife being a teacher and having 3 young boys, I know that there is a giant need for what our next guest is going to do in the project he's working on. But I have Tim Smith from The Financial Dad. Hi, Tim. Welcome to Wealth on the Move, the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Well, appreciate it.
So you have something pretty special in the works that you're getting ready to launch here soon, huh?
Yes, I do. We're very excited about it.
What exactly is The Financial Dad, and give us a little bit of background about how you came up with this and what your motive was for this?
So what it is a podcast that launches January 6th, as well as information on personal finance that's going to be available on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. And how this came about, I have a son who graduated from college about 7 years ago. And he asked me shortly before they finished, and he studied computer science, and most of his friends studied computers or, cyber security and things like that. It was a technical computer college. And he asked me if I would come in and do a seminar on personal finance for the kids. His group of friends, and he had like 10 kids in a small apartment, was actually well attended in that sense, right?
Yeah.
And he framed it by saying, we just got through 4 years of college and we know nothing about personal finance, taxes, investments, insurance, budgeting, company benefits that we're about to receive from all these companies we're all joining and things like that. And I said, sure. So I put together a 3-hour seminar for them. And really went over a lot of information, gave them handouts, and it was very well received. They were a very eager audience. They absorbed it very well. I tried to keep the concept simple. And my son said to me afterwards, Dad, you ought to think about doing this. My father was a college professor. I think I have a kind of a teaching style to how I do things as a result. I suppose it's in the gene.
Yeah.
And I ruminated on this for a while. And then another kid of mine graduated and was in the same place. This child studied acting and singing, so I wasn't expecting her to get much in the business, world or finance world. And, kind of happened again. And the idea came from my 2 daughters to start something called The Financial Dad. And the concept there was, this is a dad talking to his kids about personal financial topics and educating them and giving them perspective and information and things like that. And so a couple of years back, we started doing some videos on personal financial topics with the kids. And they were asking questions. My younger daughter was asking questions and stuff like that. And honestly, we tried to market them on their own. But what we came to understand was that with so much free content out there, people don't pay for content. There's too much that's free. So we decided to go the podcast route and build a following as much as we can. And then eventually, if we can monetize that, it would be great. Or this may end up being just a labor of love. We'll see. Fortunately, I have a day job, so I'm not too worried. I'm not worried about that. My daughters are, but I'm not too worried about it.
Well, and we may have skipped over your day job. You and I have a very similar background. We're both financial advisors.
Yes.
Right. And
yes.
So we, a lot of this information is innate to us. We've spent our life around it and sometimes can't realize what folks don't know. And
I think it's very easy to forget how much we know.
Right.
And how the breadth of knowledge we have on different topics that the layperson does not. I mean, it's like a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, anybody with a specialty of sorts. And your knowledge is narrow but deep, right? Ours is personal finance and topics that individuals have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, or should be dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Right. And it's really, as I speak to my children and young people in general, I realize, wow, I've learned a lot in 40 years of doing this.
Well, and it's not only is it important information but it's things that it can be expensive to not have the information. It can be, you can make some very expensive mistakes by not getting this knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, just the mistakes in investing,
Hmm.
speculating versus investing, for
Right.
example, and not having a long-term overall strategy to how you manage your own money, not taking advantage of company benefits. You know what I mean? Just
Right.
things that are out there that are available to you that you don't know about. Using debt, getting in over your head with debt, or not using debt at all in some respects. I think there are differences of opinion in the financial advisory world about debt in general.
Right.
I personally don't have a positive or negative feeling about debt. I think it's just a matter of how you use it.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, so there are mistakes that people make that cost them, I mean, thousands or hundreds of thousands of
Yeah.
dollars over time, because life is a long time.
Hmm.
And 40 to 45 years of accumulating mistakes adds up, right?
Okay.
So, yeah, and thus the need for financial advice. And we all have jobs as a result
Right.
of that.
Yes. Well, and
Yeah.
it's find that the best of us, and seeing some of the content that you guys are getting ready to release, the best of us are good at disseminating that content into lay terms for folks that can understand it, so that they're, because it's very intimidating information. It can be very intimidating information. And I think our best colleagues, you would agree, that are able to turn this into understandable, relatable topics and make that information easy to
Yeah,
digest.
it's critical. There's always a complaint about you're with a doctor and he's talking doctorese, right?
Right.
You don't understand what the heck he means. I agree. I think a critical skill of a good financial advisor is someone who can take the complex and make it simple enough, or know your audience and make it simple enough for that audience, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes you have high level people who grasp concepts very quickly or have advanced knowledge to begin with. If you're working with a person who has a financial background, for example, you don't have to go quite so simple, but you have to make it simple enough so that that lay person feels not intimidated and feels in a position to make good decisions for themselves.
Yes. So how are you doing that with this information as you start to assemble all this for kids?
Well, first of all, we're making the assumption that they have absolutely no understanding of
Okay.
even the basic financial concepts. What is interest? How does a bank work? How does a bank account for,
Yeah.
what is disability insurance? Or, how do you get a mortgage? What does it mean? And,
Yeah.
renting an apartment, getting renter's insurance. What's that about? So, all of these things, these kids have never had exposure to, because generally speaking, a parent or both parents dealt with all of this, rarely sat down and explained it to the kids. Even that assumes that the parent actually
Right.
understands it
That's
themselves,
I was going to say
right?
that the miseducation of our population over the last 30 or 40 years when it comes to finance is a big hurdle for you guys to overcome.
Yeah, it's a generational issue, right?
Yes.
We've had generations of non-education
Right.
for people about personal finance. And as a result of that, the parents aren't necessarily even in a position to educate the kids. So, given that our target for this is, generally speaking, younger people, we're really keeping it very simple, and it's topical to where they are in their lives. The age, I just mentioned a few topics: apartment
Yeah.
renting, buying your first home, life insurance for the first time that you're doing that, or the first time you're getting company benefits. And what does this all, what's a 401k plan, or a 457 plan, or what are these things? And what do they mean for my future? But should I
Yes.
get into it? Should I not get into it? So, yes, keeping it simple really is the main thing we're doing. The podcast itself, we're targeting a lot of it towards people who are entrepreneurial as well, because entrepreneurs who don't get a W 2 and who don't get company benefits provided to them by some larger, company, they have issues that go that much far. What are quarterly estimated taxes, right?
Yeah.
You
I
know,
remember the first time I learned about that on my own. Right.
yeah. So we're adding to it not just personal finance knowledge for the average person, but more knowledge of concepts that entrepreneurs are faced with, number one, as well as a lot of interviews with successful entrepreneurs, so
Okay.
that there's good sort of life lessons, I guess I would say. You
Yeah.
know, I always in doing giving personal advice, talking to a person who started a successful business, one of my favorite things is just to hear the story. You
Yes.
know, how did you go from uh, a high school or college kid doing God knows what on the weekends, like every other college kid, to someone who has built a multi-million dollar company, a multi-million dollar net worth, a respected person within an industry with a niche in the industry. What is that process? What does that look like? Ironically, so much of it seems to be luck, or, where you were at a given moment in life at a given time and things like that. But anyway, I think for the entrepreneurial person, hearing those stories of the path that happened to someone and hearing life lessons like, what have you learned? What worked? What didn't work? When things didn't work, how did you shift gears? What did you learn from that? So we're doing a lot with that kind of information. As
Awesome. Well, yeah, and it's so necessary, especially in this new type of creator economy where, everybody walking around with an iPhone has the potential to be an entrepreneur immediately. Just,
there's something like 33 million self-employed businesses in the
wow.
country. So there's an immense need there for financial education, basic.
Yeah.
I mean, just basic. How do you read what is a P&L statement,
It's a
a profit and
P&L,
loss
right?
statement, and a balance sheet? And what do they mean? What are they telling you as you look at it, and things like that? Because if you come from let's say a shoe marketing background, for the sake of argument, and you're going to sell shoes on eBay or whatever, knowing what's happening from a financial perspective with your company, sometimes it's as simple as, is the cash going up or is it going down, right?
Yes.
In your bank account, but by how much and why? And those are things that although believe it or not, I was an actor singer as a kid.
Okay.
And I've remained on the side of my side light has always been continuing to perform on stages, luckily around the world. But in college, I took an accounting class, and I don't even remember the rationale for it at the time. But accounting made so much sense to me. Well, I don't know why, but my mathematical mind, it just fit, it
Yeah.
worked, and that enticed me to take marketing, economics, finance, and management.
Okay.
So 5 or 6 business classes laid the foundation for me to know enough to build a company and read
Yes.
the financial statements, understand the concepts of marketing at a basic level. But the concepts of management, I still remember to this day. The one thing that the teacher in management said: management is getting work done by other people. And I'm inherently lazy, so that really resonated with me. I'm a delegator style. Oh, you're willing to do that? Yeah, great. Go ahead, take that job. So, but those are things that I was blessed to study
Okay.
and then build upon over now 40 years of doing this. Whereas most young people studied something else,
Right.
and they don't have this background. So the need is just enormous. And we're really excited about the opportunity to help people with this, and that's
Yeah. I
that's where
can't
we're
wait to
coming
see
from.
it. Like I said, with 3 young kids, trying to overcome their miseducation. The one program that our school does that, drives me a little crazy is they bring a bank in and they do this little savers program every month. And these kids make a deposit and they're teaching them to save, which is good, but then they give them some sort of tchotchke for making their deposit. And they pay no interest on the account. There hasn't been any interest paid on this account the entire time that the kids have had them. So you're kind of, it's becoming more of an indoctrination to how friendly a bank is supposed to be rather than what the function of the bank is supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's something that, even when I've called and said, okay, over the last 3 years, interest rates have climbed substantially. You guys still aren't paying anything. What gives? But those aren't interest-bearing accounts.
yeah,
So
yeah.
then,
Well, when they get a little older, so approximately 20 states require a high school curriculum on personal finance. So I mean, there's some degree of adoption or recognition in the country that we're creating financially illiterate people, And personal finance is something that everyone has to deal with, right? I mean, I don't know. In my time, we had home economics and shop. Okay. So I guess the theory was eventually we were all going to need to know how to use a lathe
Make a
and
birdhouse.
sew dresses. And,
Right.
I mean, how ridiculous when I look back upon it, because personal finance, again, is something everyone has to use.
Yes. There's no avoiding it. You're
Everyone
right.
eventually is forced to. I mean, unless you're blessed with so much money and so many people around you that they do it all for you, which is extraordinarily small number of
Sure.
people.
When I was
So ironically, my younger my younger daughter had that class in high school. And
okay.
as we started this whole thing, she goes to me, "Is that what that class was?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And she goes, "God, I learned nothing. I mean, nothing memorable, nothing usable, nothing translatable." And so, and I applaud it, but I think it's a little too early. High school is a little too early for some things. You know, Late college and early career is the time when it all really hits.
Yeah.
You're trying to get
When
out on
I
your own.
think about where I mean, fortunately, my father owned his own business, so I learned a lot by watching him.
Uh-huh.
Um, and would say, and he would even remind me very early on in my own venture, hey, don't forget your quarterly taxes are due. So I had a natural reminder from him and was very, very lucky. But ironically, my first job out of college, I worked for a tremendous company that brought in 8 of us right out of college, and they brought in a financial advisor to teach us about all these things.
Yeah.
They were grooming us to become leadership within the company, and wanted us to be successful in all aspects, and was very lucky to have that. I don't even think it was from the company's 401k plan. It was just an independent local person who came in and talked to us about paying yourself first,
Yeah.
and being wary of overspending in your free time, and what the 401k benefits were, how to take advantage of our health insurance, and the importance of renter's insurance and things. So we were very, very lucky that employer really, really took care of us.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that don't, more than not, do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in my whole career, I've only known of one company that did that.
Okay.
They were very good at it, but all the companies I've dealt with, sometimes large companies will allow financial advisors to come in and do lunch and learn kind of things. But it's not a real education program, I would say. Generally speaking, it's not strategic. It's haphazard, and different people come in and say different things. So because we all have different philosophies and ways of approaching this stuff, so there may not be consistency of that, right? So it's not as simple.
Yeah.
But it's rare is the problem. It's just rare. And
Yes.
again, to go back to what I said earlier, once someone has decided they're going to be on their own and try to create their own thing of some sort, it all goes out the window, because now they don't have that backup support from their company.
Yes. And
So yeah.
missteps can, unfortunately become very, very expensive at that point.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, most businesses fail. Most businesses fail because they don't have enough money. They typically don't have enough money for one of two reasons. They just can't scrape up the money, or they underestimate what they're going to need. And so, budgeting for a new business, is a science in itself, and just giving people like rational ways to plan it out, to have something approaching a business plan from a financial perspective as they are early in a business startup, is critical to their success. If they don't have some sense for inflow and outflow and timing, and when money may arrive or not arrive, it's just really hard to run a business without your finger on the pulse of that.
Yes. I couldn't agree more. So you guys are a family team, I see, right?
Yeah.
You and your daughters have
These are my
taken this
actual
on.
kids. Yeah.
So they are your first students to graduate
Victims.
from financial.
They
But
are.
clearly
Yes.
they saw the value in what you were teaching them, and so that's a pretty incredible story that you started with your own kids, and see that
Yeah. I'm
how
proud of my
important.
kids, of course. Love my kids and everything. They're all successful in their own right. But while they have no interest in being a financial advisor, which I'm happy about, quite frankly, uh, they have an interest in personal finance.
Right.
They want to run their finances well, and so they take all this to heart. They're really listening, and they're really acting upon the information that they're getting and stuff. So it's really gratifying for me as a dad, not just as a financial advisor slash teacher slash whatever you want to call me at this point.
Right.
It's I'm just really happy about what we're doing and how they're taking it.
Great. So what's you guys launch around January 6th? Is that when the podcast is released? Is that when the YouTube videos go live? Is that when everything is?
Yeah. That's the date. We're marketing it now. We've actually
Okay.
started putting some Instagram posts and ads. We're paying to boost those posts.
Okay.
Same on YouTube. And ironically, I came across our own ad on YouTube because I'm a bit of a YouTube addict at this point.
Yeah, me too.
Sorry to admit.
I get
Uh,
sucked into that wormhole sometimes.
and ironically, I don't watch anything about personal finance on YouTube. I watch completely different stuff.
Right.
And yet here I am, getting my own reel stuck in front of my face, my
That's cool.
short put in front of my face. So yeah, so
We'll make sure we
launching
put the link in our comments for this video with the link to the channel, link to the podcast, and
Great. We appreciate it very much, and we
Yeah,
intend to do the same with you.
we're excited to see this, excited to share it with our young clients, excited to make my kids sit down and watch it. I think this is really an incredible venture, and it as a father
Apologize
of
to your
three,
young kids now for me, okay? Well,
so they need it, and maybe they'll listen to you because
yeah.
they don't always think dad knows what he's talking about. But
Yeah.
as a father of three kids, this is entirely necessary information. We loop in with our local school where our office is on occasion, and Nico, another advisor in our office, will just go up and talk with these kids and answer questions about how do I get insurance? How do I open a bank account? How do I do these things? Because they're a few months away from graduating from high school, starting jobs. And, fortunately, a teacher up there had the vision to say, these kids need help, and I don't know enough to help them, and looped us into that process. So we're excited to share this project that you're on with them, and, hopefully visit back with you soon and hear about our successes and see it all over YouTube.
Yeah, great. I appreciate it very much, Will. Thank you.
So we have a little thing that we do here that I totally stole from the Diary of a CEO podcast.
Okay.
Stephen Bartlett does something cool that I can't take any credit for, but I'm absolutely going to do, so just to try to link all of our podcast guests together.
Okay.
So the first thing we're going to do is I have a question from our previous guest, who was Suzanne Campy. Suzanne is a retirement coach, helping folks with everything but the financial aspect of retiring and that big life transition. Okay. So she has a question, and then we're going to give you an opportunity to ask a question of our next guest.
I have to answer her question, though? Is that the...
Yes. So
okay.
Suzanne's question was, in your last big life transition, did you honor what ended? Did you spend any time mourning or honoring or celebrating what had just ended?
Wow. It's ironic because I am sort of in that point in my life right now.
Okay.
As I look at stepping away from some of my day-to-day responsibilities, which we didn't talk about, but, I run a financial services company with about 100 advisors around the country.
Oh, wow.
So, that's been a big part of my career. I'm looking at ways to elevate and or change the makeup of my management so that I can work less on that and do more of this kind of thing. So the question is, did I honor it? I don't feel any grief or mourning kind of a sense. I feel nothing but gratitude that I've had a wonderful run at that. I think it would be fair to say that in life, you need new challenges,
Yes.
constantly to grow. And that particular part of my life, the growth kind of has ended for me. And I'm looking for new challenges. I'm looking for what is going to, as they say, give me fire in the belly. I'm going on 62. My father lived well into his 90s, and I expect to have a long life. The concept
Yeah.
of retirement, where you stop and read the paper all day long, does not exist for me. I think I'm way too hyper, for that. So for me, it's more about what's next, and the financial dad is part of what's next. So I don't really feel grief or a sense of mourning over this change. I feel more excitement,
Great.
and I know that I'm going to grow in new ways, and I'm going to, my mind is not going to, go fallow, basically. Yes, I stopped using it. I'm going to use different parts of it with new challenges, and I have a few other things in mind for where I'm going with it. So,
Right.
so ironically, no, I don't feel grief per se, and I haven't mourned it. I
But
feel,
you have honored it. I mean, you
yeah,
said you have an
yeah,
immense amount of gratitude,
I
and
feel
to,
gratitude, right?
to interject there, I mean, it really is the best business in the world, isn't it?
I'm
It,
sorry,
it,
what
it
is the best?
I said it really is the best business in the world, isn't it? The
Yeah,
business
I
that we're
mean,
in.
taking knowledge and helping people with it.
Mm-hmm.
Love people. I love the clients I've worked with over the years, even the clients I lost or anything else.
Yeah.
I still love people, and it's been a blessing. It's been a wonderful, wonderful part of my life. The advisors I have coached and mentored, and which is part of the reason I got into creating a company for a financial advisor. I I've really just been blessed with the ability to help other people, and I plan to continue that just in other ways, and to find new challenges with it and that kind of thing. So, um, but yeah, I guess I have honored it. I have,
Yeah.
I've thought an awful lot about it and continued to, just to feel gratitude about it and look back on it extremely fondly and gratefully.
Yep. I call this a get to job. I get to wake up every morning and do this job and have this
Yeah,
business. And
yeah.
I don't know what else I would have done if it wouldn't have been this. Um,
Well, I
I
do. I would have been an
yeah.
actor singer,
Well, you're right. You
and,
said that.
and God knows, I probably would have needed a financial advisor because I would have, I would have needed loans probably more than
Oh,
anything else, right, to survive. But that's my second love in life, or first love, I guess.
nice.
Um, but I do not regret that career change. I did grieve that career change, because it was a lifelong dream up until I was in my early 20s to be an actor and to be on stages and things like that. But I really came to a point of realizing that I also wanted a traditional lifestyle. I wanted to raise children. I wanted to be home at night and read to them and,
Yeah.
spend time with them. And the itineracy of an actor's life with either filming or tours on the road of a theatrical, it just was not suited to,
Yeah.
and that's ultimately why I made the decision to change careers.
So now the tough part. What
Okay.
question would you like to ask our next guest?
Well, I guess I can kind of piggyback on a question that I often ask other entrepreneurs and business owners and successful people, which is let's start. Well, I like to ask it two ways. You'll have to choose which one, if not both you ask, but what are the best things you've learned so far in your career that you wish you had known earlier?
Okay.
And what are the greatest lessons you've learned from a failure? You know,
Okay. Two
for me,
exceptional
those are
questions.
just amazing questions. You learn so much about
Yeah.
what has happened in people's careers and the path they've taken and the bad and the good from those kinds of questions. So I hope it's not one that you get like the same one all the time
No, no,
from
that's the
all of your
first.
guests,
Well,
Good.
this is only the third or fourth time that we've done this, so the questions are
Okay.
still pretty rare and pretty new. So yeah, I'm excited to ask our next guest that question and hear their answer and keep perpetuating this. It's kind of a great way for us to tie everybody together and
Yeah, it's a
acknowledge
cool idea. It's really cool.
we're not. I love that Stephen Bartlett does it. It's incredible and it makes me watch the next episode because I can't wait to hear the answer.
Well, I also love that you didn't tell me what the question was ahead of time, so I really, I really had to answer it from the heart and off the top of my head, as quickly as I could. So
Yeah,
that's
and the
great.
last episode with Suzanne was pretty incredible. Just hearing how folks approach retirement from a life standpoint, not just
Hmm.
you and I are so caught up in the money aspect of that transition that
Yeah.
the lifestyle conversation or the life conversation rarely gets discussed enough in that process. So
Yeah.
it was great to have
Yeah.
Suzanne on. We had a lengthy conversation about, folks retiring and folks, trying to avoid being bored or making that transition. And what she did find was that most folks don't honor what just ended. And
Yeah.
it stops. They stop going to work the next day, and they don't acknowledge the lives that they impacted or the companies that they built or helped build. And it really is a cathartic process to go through.
That's a great idea.
But, well, thank you again for joining us on Wealth on the Move. If our listeners want to get in touch with you or learn more about the Financial Dad, how should they go about doing that?
Yeah. So on YouTube, it's The Financial Dad, all one word with an underscore after it. Don't
Okay.
ask me why, but that's the YouTube. I believe it's the same on Instagram. And
Okay.
the Instagram, of course, is less content rich than the YouTube is going to be.
Okay.
It's more promotional and some content, but more promotional in general. So that's where to go for it. And my day job is aurorapw.com,
Okay.
the Aurora companies that I run. So if anybody, wants to see my background more or something like that,
And we'll make sure we link all
you can
that
find more there.
in the comments below. And as always, if you want to reach out to us, it's hoffmanwealth.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very, very active on there. But again, Tim, thank you. Thank you for your contribution to this from as a parental standpoint. I can't wait to watch it and share it. And I'm excited to see it take off.
Thank you so much, Will. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks again. Take
Okay.
care, everybody.
Take care.
The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Hoffman Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service providers with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.